Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back to the Eretz Chemda Beit Midrash. We are still in a war mode, and Bezrat Hashem, through the unity of the Jewish people, we will be victorious. Through the tshuva of the Jewish people, we will be victorious, and through the Torah learning, then the mitzvahs that we do, Bezrat Hashem, the schut, will go towards the men and the women who are serving with their blood. Okay, so we are in Parshat Tzav. I just want to remind all those who watch us regularly that we are using the Yakar as the basis for the discussion. Number one. Number two, we encourage you to use the Hebrew sheets, which you will find a link down below in the YouTube description box or on our website. Okay. So we're in chapter 6 of Leviticus, verse 2, and what we're dealing with is the burnt offering. Now, the burnt offering means it's entirely burnt. It's called an olah. It means it goes up. The entire thing goes up. We're going to really discuss this philosophically in depth, and one of the first things we're going to deal with is one of the first words, which the Parsha is called Tzav. So in verse 2 it says, Tzav es Aaron ves banav lemor. At least that's the first part of it. I gave out, if you want the English sheets, you have to email me and we'll put you on our list. So the verse in its entirety continues, Zois Torah sa'oila hi ha'olah al mukta al mizbeach kol halayla ad haboker ve'esh mizbeach tukad bo. So God is commanding, right, that Moshe should command Aaron and his son, saying, so in Hebrew, Tzav, what is Tzav? I just want to give background. Tzav is the root of the word mitzvah. So as we translate, it's command. And what is a mitzvah? It's a commandment, it's a law. But we all know, if you've been watching our station, we know that the real root is really, as Rashi explained several times in Shas, that the word mitzvah, the root is tzav, which means to connect, to lechaber, to mamish unite. And this is the gift that God gave the Jewish people, 613 commandments, the non-Jewish world 7, in which we can connect to the Almighty. This is our method, through the mitzvot. Now, we're going to use the word tzav a little bit differently tonight. I shouldn't say differently, another level, another dimension. And I think that it's really consistent because the first thing that Rashi mentions is that the word tzav always denotes urging, promptly, meticulously to fulfill a particular commandment. So tzav is like urging you on. And we're going to see the Hebrew is called zarez. Okay? And that's what he explains. In Ein Tzav Elalashin, Zaruz, Zrizut, is passion, is careful and concerned to do something, to fulfill something. And I think it really fits in well because lechaber, which means to connect. You don't want to connect to something that you're not passionate or in love with. I'm talking for myself here. I don't know if that's true by everybody. So the word tzav es Aaron, command him, meaning urge him. Why would he need urging by the Ola? That's going to be really the question. There's so many commands, there's so many things that Aaron has to do, or the Kohanim must perform, that you don't have the word tzav. And yet tzav is a special and unique word that denotes urging, promptly, meticulously. Why is it by here, but not by the other mitzvahs? That's a great question, right? You would all agree that's a great question. So that's really what we're going to deal with. And if you go to the Yakar, So he says right away, quotes Rashi, top line, Ein Tzav ela zeruz, urging, miyad uledorot. So it's not only now present in this present generation, but for all generations, as we will see that Aaron and his children must urge on their grandchildren, or let's say all Kohanim, must have this zrizus, which we will see that they do have. So he brings Rashi. Rashi's quoting from Gemara or somewhere. Amar Rebbe Shimon, biyoter tzarich hakatuv, lezares b'makom sheyesh bo chisron kis. We're going to actually see Rashi got this from the Medrash as well, the Gemara. The Rebbe Shimon says that what the verse requires you even to be more zeruz, which again means to urge. I'm going to say being more fervent about something, where there is a chisron kis. Chesron kis means literally, let's just say, means a lack of money. Or here we're going to say it's a loss of money. What kind of money is being lost by the ola? So the kohanim depends on the different korbanot. Sometimes they get to indulge with the meat on a higher level, meaning more, and sometimes less. But many of the korbanos, the kohanim actually do participate in. But the ola, none. So the question really is, what is unique and different about the ola offering that they need urging on? This particular offering, the Kohen does not participate in the eating. In fact, the entire thing, when I say entire, I mean all the meat, is going to go up in flames until it turns into ash. And it is true that the skins are worth money, and they are kept by the Kohanim. In the case of many of the korbanos, especially this one, because that's all they really can benefit from. But it's not ochel, it's not food. There's no question about the skins being worth money. But the idea is that it is a chisron kis. It is a lack of the food that they normally get from other korbanos. And the second line down says, Ein ziruz ki'im b'makom otzla. It's very strange. What are we bringing in laziness for? So you only need to urge somebody on in a place where there's a likelihood of being lazy. So if there's no benefit, you're not going to put as much into it. If you know you're getting something out of it, especially a nice barbecue piece of meat, you may put more into it. But since there's a total loss, what kind of self-motivation? Therefore, there has to be an external motivation. And therefore, the word tzav. Make sure they do this. What? They have to stay up all night. Let's take a look back. You don't have it on your sheets, but I'll read the first few verses of chapter 6. So after we said, right, command Aaron and his sons, saying this is the Tova of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering which shall be burning upon the altar all night until morning. Okay? So you have to stay up all night and tend to the fire. Continue to put fuel, the wood, on the fire and stoke the fire and make sure that the korbanos that are supposed to be burnt are entirely burnt. So it's work in the middle of the night. I don't know how you feel, but we don't do the night shift usually. But if someone does the night shift on a regular basis, they're probably used to staying up all night. But for us, I get like jet lag. If I would like stay up all night, let's say on Shavuos, right, on certain nights of the year where we stay up all night, it could put me off kilter, they say. So it's not so easy to stay up all night. Eventually, sleep takes over. So imagine what the Kohen has to do if he was looking forward to a nice barbecue breakfast. I don't know how many people he meet for breakfast, but anyway, so that's not happening. He's not having any meat for any kind of barbecue. Okay, so back into the Yakar. The last thing he said was, you really only need this urging on in a place where laziness exists. And Mishlei, Proverbs, brings two verses that relate to what? To laziness and falling asleep. What do we say? Sometimes we say, out of boredom, I can die of boredom, or people can die of boredom. Now, it is true. I think there are people who actually do die of boredom. But, yeah, it really is such a disease. But imagine staying up all night and not being motivated. You will fall asleep. And so in verse 19:15, that's number 2 on the source sheet, laziness causes one to fall into a deep sleep, and a deceitful soul shall suffer hunger. Atzla tapil tardema. Look at Rashi. Laziness causes one to fall asleep. Now this is just figuratively, but I think it means this is like literal. But the allegory is that it concerns one who neglects his studies. It will ultimately come about that people will ask him words of wisdom, and he will be sound asleep. Meaning, if you don't pay attention during your studies, okay, you're not passionate about your learning, I think what happens is you don't really retain as much. If you know you're going to be asked, like going to be tested, if you know you're going to be tested, like, let's say you're in school, you study and you retain. But when it's not that meaningful to you, so then you don't study that hard, you don't retain it, and then people ask you questions, you don't really know the answers. I think it's real. I had a Rabbi in yeshiva, and he always started a class with telling us, or asking the question, who was the most valuable player in the baseball in 1952? Or one of those stats. And you know what? He knew every one of them. And I thought to myself, this man, he knows an incredible amount of Torah, and he remembers. What actually gets somebody to retain? And I thought to myself, you're in love with it. You're passionate about it. It means something to you. Well, guess what? The Torah should mean something to all of us. And therefore, we hear something once, we'll never forget it, right? Well, it's not true. Halavai, it should be true. But that's why we have to review and sometimes stand on our feet when we're falling asleep, put our feet in cold water. I remember when I was studying to be a rabbi, I actually slept over in yeshiva for the last 3 months. It was a 3-year program, but whatever. And I stood up, I put my feet nice, I did whatever I could to get through, like staying awake, making sure I really retained it and didn't fall asleep. And look, maybe it paid off, I don't know. But anyway, so he brought 2 verses down. The second verse is in Proverbs 6:9. O lazy one, how long will you lie there? When will you get up from your sleep? So we see that laziness and sleep, they're somehow related. Okay? And remember, this particular urging on is for the Kohen to stay up all night, as we will see. 4th line down, he says, V'kan hu mitzavesh yitasek b'kidat eish kol halayla ad haboker. See, right here, there's this command that the Kohen should involve himself with keeping the flame alive the entire night until the morning. Now, we're going to see some really mystical ideas here that we should incorporate into our lives. Yesh lachush, the Yakar continues, there is to be concern. Shemitzad ha'otzla mitzuya ba'adam. We all know we're all lazy. You're not lazy. Everywhere you go, you're running. You're running, and his body shows he doesn't get any weight. Okay, I don't make fun of you. We all are lazy, and we have a little bit of we all are lazy. We're all lazy. He says it's found in man. It's commonly found in man. And what happens? Yavo lidei tardema. It brings you to dozing off. V'yakal kel korban, and if you were a Kohen, it could ruin the korban. Now, this is a little complicated because there's different stages of the korban, there's different stages of the different korbanot, the offerings, and most of the, from the slaughter until the blood is spilled, that usually is where the kapara ends or begins, let's say. And if something happens to the korban afterwards, there's usually not a total loss, but the Yakar says a little bit different. Al kain hu tzarich zeiruz. So the Kohen doesn't doze off. He does have a command to make sure that he stays awake and burns it all. And it could be that if he doesn't do this, there's going to be a total loss. Okay? So he says, "V'dugma lezeh perish hare'im," that's the Eliyahu Mizrahi. As an example to this, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi brings an example, be'inyan chisron kis, something that has to do, that relates to the loss of money. She'ikatzar tuva b'kida ta'esh kol halayla yoter mitzaro shel chisron kis. That this is an equation, like this is a statement that he's making, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, and I can give an example from my own life that perhaps is true. Maybe it's not true by everybody. That there's more pain in trying, or effort and pain in trying to stay up the entire night than loss of money. Now, if you can't relate to that, I'll explain. I lived on a yishuv, and we had what we call night guard duty. And so there were 2 shifts. We had to do it twice a month. One at midnight till 3 in the morning, and one from 3 in the morning until 6 a.m. So we did 6 hours each month, but we split it up 2 weeks apart. All the fat, lazy Americans like me, we paid the skinny Russian guys to go and walk around at midnight because it was worth sleeping and we didn't mind paying. You get it? So I think that's the exact translation. That there's more pain involved keeping the fire lit the whole night, more than the pain of the loss of the money. That's why we were willing to pay. And from here the rabbis learn in Gemara Shabbos, number 4 in the source sheet. It was only part of the Gemara, so I brought down what I thought was... It was kindled merely for the benefit of the priest. We're talking about something that was done in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos. The fact there was no concern about lighting that bonfire on Shabbat Eve at nightfall is because the priests are vigilant. In Hebrew, stam, how does he say it here? Stam konim zrizimim. This is a concept that we say that people of the Levitical class and upwards, toward the Kohanim, are vigilant. They already have this natural urge to not only to do things, to serve God. In fact, the word kohen actually means to serve, a servant, to serve, to administer. That's why they're the ministers, the priests. But they want to do things correctly, meticulously. And he says that here. The priests are vigilant with regard to mitzvot. They will certainly not come to stoke the coals, meaning on Shabbat. Okay, so it's a sugya that has to deal with Shabbos. But this is the quote that stam kohanim zrizimim. They're always full of fervor. Ki katuv zerzam bi'amru. That the text itself is urging them on when it says Tzav es Aaron. That Moses is telling them, right? Command Aaron and his sons. Now, what did we say? Lamor always means to teach over, to say over. Lamor lidorot. To future generations. Shakulam yihiu mizorozim ba'avoda. That all of them, as we know, Kohanim are zares. They're mamish fervent. Is that a word? Fervent? Fervent? To do the work inside the temple area. V'aviru shena me'enehem. And to remove the sleep from their eyes. Utnuma me'afafehem, and the crust from their eyelids. V'yit asku ba'avoda kol halayla ad haboker, and that is what the Torah is commanding them, encouraging them, tzav, that they should get involved and be involved in the service the entire night until the morning. So the next paragraph says, B'inyan chisron kisa amurkan rabu hadeot. This concept of a total loss or a lack of money, loss of money, that's spoken about here, there are many opinions. V'oisif lekach tov mishali. So the Yakar is saying, I'm going to add by taking some of the good ideas that I have, my own ideas, and sharing them with you. Lefi sha'olah, remember the olah is the burnt offering where the entire animal goes up. What does it atone for? It's makaperet al hirhur alev. It atones for the thoughts of the heart, not for actions. When someone sins on purpose, They don't bring a korban. All that God wants is the person to do tshuva. God really wants you to do tshuva, and he made it available. It's a gift. It's really a gift from Hashem that we have this concept of repentance. Sin offerings are brought for inadvertent sins. Inadvertent, shogeg. When you did something not fully meaningful. You were lacking some information. Like you didn't know it was a sin. Or you didn't realize that the punishment, the severity of the punishment. Or you knew it was forbidden, you knew the severity, but you didn't know it was Shabbos. For some reason you woke up and you thought it was Tuesday. There's chaser yediyah, there's something lacking. And we'll call it negligence because you should have known. Okay? But it's not premeditated intentional sin. Premeditated intentional sin, let's say for example you have witnesses and people warning you, and you said you're going to do it anyway. The inadvertent sin, if you had witnesses and warning, you would have said, oh my gosh, thank you very much. You just saved me a korban. You just saved me from doing a sin. Okay? So, here who are lave, there is no action. There's just a thought. What's wrong with that? Let's hear what he has to say. Oh, the truth is, the very last page, the Medrash is, I really want to read it. I know it's a lot of reading, and I don't like to take that much time to read English, but I think I'm going to have to. What we'll do is number 5 on the source sheet. This is the crux of the matter. Regarding the matter itself, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that this olah, the burnt offering, comes only for the hirhur, the rumination of the heart. Hirhur alev. Well, we're going to discuss all this. This is absolutely beautiful ideas. Rabbi Levi said it is a categorical verse. The verse actually says in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 32, what arises, now even the word ha'olah, it's also what arises in your thoughts will not be that which you say, that we will be like the nations to serve wood and stone. I do think it's worthwhile. It's unbelievable. If you go to the last page in the source sheet, that whole page, I think it's so deep and fundamental that I will read it to you. Okay? I will read it to you because it's necessary for those who don't have these sheets. On the top left is where it begins. Right? We just read in the English, Gufa, the text says, Amar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, Le'alam eina oile bo ela al hirhur halev. That this ola offering, the burnt offering, is only brought. It's never brought for anything other than improper musings of the heart. Now, number 52, it's just right below, for sinful thoughts that did not involve any sinful actions. The Midrash uses the word le'olam eina olam ba ella. Right, the ola offering is never brought to indicate that this principle applies normally, right, for both communal and individual offerings. When it comes to the ola, that's going to be only for individual offerings. Okay? So for communal offerings, you never bring an olah. Okay. In his comments on Leviticus 1:4, the Ramban explains this principle as follows. Since God alone was aware, who knows your thoughts and hearts of a man? Only God, not another human being. Since God alone was aware of a person's sinful thoughts, it is appropriate that they be atoned through the olah offering, which is given to God alone. So the other korbanos, even the person bringing sometimes participates in the eating. The Kohanim participate in the eating. But in the Olah, no human being participates in it. It's only God who consumes, so to speak, the offering. So he's the only one, right, so he's the only one that knows what you did. Since God alone was aware of the person's sinful thoughts, it is appropriate that they be atoned through the Olah, which is given to God alone, wholly consumed on the altar's fire, with neither the Kohanim nor the owners sharing in any of its meat. Now, the latter part of what's up top, remember we're dealing with what's on top, Rabbi Levi said this concept is brought in an explicit, you can find this in explicit verse in Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 32. It says, Ha'ola al ruchachem. Now, ha'ola, we were talking about the ola offering, but in this case, the ola means what? That it is, we're going to find out, it's something hidden in your minds. Only you know, and God. We'll see in a second. Ruchachem is your spirit. Loti asher atem omri, but something you don't say. So look in number 53 on the right side on the top. The ola atones for sins of the mind, meaning improper thoughts. The literal translation of the verse is, now the word enter also, it enters your mind. For that which enters your mind, it shall not be. However, even though we're translating it as entering your mind, the word is ha'olah, it can actually be read as the ola offering. It's the ola offering is being offered up for the hir ha'alev, only that which enters your mind. At the very bottom of that suggests that Rabbi Shimon is interpreting the verse similarly. So when we read Zosh Torah's ha'olah, hi ha'olah, what we're saying is this is the law of the ola offering. It is for what enters your mind. Okay? So therefore, everything is consistent and good. What is absolutely amazing, I told you, I don't really like to read this, but these are insights that I think that will change our view of the world, of ourselves, and the way we relate to Hashem, especially between our thoughts and our actions. So on the left side, it says insights, thoughts and actions. The Shlema Rebbe, that's in the Siva Shalom, he asked the question, why the Ola offering is brought to atone for improper thoughts. We already established that. Whereas the Chatis, that's the sin offering, is brought to atone for improper actions. So the Ola is for improper thoughts, hir ha'alev, and the Chatis is when you actually acted on something inadvertently, b'shogeg. Right? Whereas we already said, the Ola is burned completely on the altar, whereas parts of the Chatas are consumed by the Kohanim. Now, you would think that when we are about deeds, it's always about what you do, right? Judaism, what do you do? How do you do it? And therefore, actions place a really high role. In this case, we're going to look at it a little differently because the Ola is completely burnt, whereas the Chatas, they're consumed by the Kohanim. So what might you think? That improper actions are worse, more egregious than improper thoughts. Why then does one require an offering that is totally consumed by fire to atone for improper thoughts? Something not required for improper actions. So the korban is more severe because the whole thing is going up and we're not participating, meaning the Kohanim are not participating. Whereas for improper actions, the entire thing is not consumed by the altar, and the Kohanim do benefit. So we would look normally at deeds being much worse, but in this case, the Ola seems to be a more severe, a more chamor type of offering. Clear? So the Nesiva Shalom explains that it's far more difficult to eradicate improper thoughts. Okay, so this is interesting. To eradicate these negative thoughts is much harder to do. So you do a sin, and then you do tshuva, and it's finished and it's over with. But he's going to claim that when we try to get rid of thoughts, what happens is new thoughts come in. I don't know if you can relate to this, but you can work to get rid of these thoughts, but the Satan is very tricky, and it'll have new thoughts. So what he's going to propose is you need to burn the entire thing. You need to start over. You need to start from scratch, as they say. And this is the only way it's going to happen. But let's hear his own words. He explains, Nesiva Shalom, that it's far more difficult to eradicate one's improper thoughts than it is to undo wrongful actions. A person is not beset by an unending series of temptation to wrong action. If he has stumbled or sinned, he can repent one action at a time. But improper thoughts can bombard a person. By the time he's able to remove one wayward thought, another one has already taken its place. So how does one counter the vagaries of the mind? The following can serve as a model. He uses the example. You want to build a city, right? Maybe the Amazon. I don't know, that's not a good example, but you have a forest, and you need to cut down all the trees to build a city. So what do? You cut down one tree at a time. By the time you cut down all the trees, what's going to happen? You're going to be exhausted. You're going to forget the city already. Burn the whole forest down. If you want to build a city, burn the whole forest down, assuming you're not using the wood to build the city. So a man has a large forest that he wishes to clear to build the city. If he cuts down and removes one tree at a time, his time and patience will run out before he has made any significant progress. The city will never be built. What does he do? He sets the forest ablaze. The roaring flames envelope the entire forest, burn it to the ground. Nothing's left but bare ground, and then you can build the city. A Jew who fights evil thoughts in a similar quandary is in a similar quandary. If he contends with one thought at a time, his mind will never be cleansed. What must he do then? Is build a roaring fire. Remember, we're talking about the Ola offering, which is a continuous fire in order to burn to a crisp. Right? So you have to do the same thing. To build a roaring fire, a holy, godly fire composed of Torah study and passionate service to God, which will consume any and all impure thoughts that might be lurking in his mind. Now, there's another reason that impure thoughts are more difficult to remove than sins of action. One cannot always act on a sinful impulse. Right? You might be in a situation, other people are there, you're afraid to sin. There are reasons why we don't sin sometimes. So one might be in a situation where he'll be embarrassed should people see or hear of his deeds. Or one might not have the wherewithal to commit this sinful act. You might be busy with other things. Many conditions must be met before the actual act, the sinful act, can be carried out. But what happens in the mind? There's nothing holding you back. But no one sees what goes on in the mind. Thoughts are free and hidden from the public. I want you to keep that in mind, hidden. One can act like an ostensibly observant Jew. You can study and pray while your mind is consumed with evil thoughts. No one's going to see or know. For this reason as well, one needs the power of a holy fire to fill his mind. He needs to set the altar of his personality ablaze with a flame that can destroy any impure thought in its path, at any time, at any pace. This is the Ola, the burnt offering, which burns the entire night, when no one sees, and when there's a strengthening of the powers of darkness, at night, especially at night. That's why this Ola is burnt all night long. Then especially one needs a pure holy fire of Torah, like Esha Torah, and mitzvahs to burn incessantly and keep the altar aglow. Now, on the right side of this midrash, it explains something really, really interesting. We already talked about the idea that thoughts, we atone for our negative thoughts through the Ola. So the Shem Shmuel cites his father, the Avnei Nezer, as explaining that this midrashic teaching that the Ola atones for improper musings of the hearts accounts for the Torah stipulation that the offering, this Ola offering, has to be specifically offered where? In the north. Now the word tzafon, that's what means north. But coming up on Pesach, what is tzafon? We know that's what we do with the afikomen. That's the word I'm looking for. Tzafon, north. And the way that the sun works, at least in the northern hemisphere, it starts off in the east, and it does set in the west, but it goes southward. You know, the way that the earth is tilted. So it goes southward. That's why all the Dud Shemishes are facing south. You know that? If you ever get lost in the city, we know if you get lost in the forest, look for where the moss is. The moss is growing in the north. And the reason is because the sun doesn't bake. And cause the water to absorb and evaporate. So it grows mold. So if you're stuck in a forest, look for the moss growing at the base of the tree. That is the north. If you're in a city, like Jerusalem or any city in Israel, The dud shemishes are facing south. This way they can collect the sun for the majority of the day. Okay, important to know if you get lost in the city. Okay, so why is the Ola specifically to be slaughtered and in the north? So he says like this, that the word means hidden, like Yehuda said. Indeed, in the northern hemisphere, above the Tropic of Cancer, the sun is never in the north. The north is, in a sense, always hidden from the sun. The Ola offering, then, which atones for sinful thoughts, which are hidden in the person's heart and mind, must be offered in the hidden north, in the person's heart and mind. I just read that. Okay. Then he says, but why then is there a requirement also for the sin offering, the chatas, which is specifically brought for the improper actions, not thoughts, also be offered in the north? If the significance of the north is that the hidden, it's referring to hidden, why would that be the necessary condition for the offering that atones for overt actions and deeds which are not hidden? So the Shem Mishmu explains, true, a chatis is an offering brought for improper action. Now let me just say something from a metaphysical point of view. There's a thing called the law of attraction. What you have deep in your mind becomes a reality. Okay? Becomes a reality. I don't think you inadvertently sinned on accident. See, if it was an accident, you rubbed against the wall and the light turned on Shabbos, there's no tshuva really. You just have to be more careful. There's no korban. That's not called an inadvertent. That's not shogeg. That's onus. To be shogeg means there's some kind of negligence somewhere within you that's kind of asking for this accident to happen. It's not an accident, but this inadvertent sin to happen. And that's what's hidden. And that's what's going to come out. Even in a chatas, there's something deep within that really wants to sin. Now, I don't want to tell my own stories, but interesting. I one day when I was very young, I cut school, and I was in the kitchen, and I was drinking orange juice, and I heard my mom come home. And of course, I ran out the back door, but I tried to clean up, and I left one drop of orange juice on the counter. And when I got caught, how did I get caught? Because my mother, she cleaned every spot. She knew I must have been home. It didn't just appear. So she said, you know why you left that drop there? Because you wanted to get caught. You wanted to reach out for help. You wanted to get caught. You know? So I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that in your life, but this was the love of my mother who reached out, and when you're in down and out, and she says, you really want help, or this wouldn't have happened. Same too with these sins. We're bringing the korban because of negligence, but the negligence didn't just come out of nowhere. There had to be something deep within, hidden, that caused this to eventually happen. And I think that's what he's about to say. True, a chatas is an offering brought for an improper action, but only one that was done unintentionally. Now, if the sin was completely alien to a person, something utterly beyond his contemplation, he would not have done it, even unintentionally. One is brought to unintentional transgression only because his mind at some point did feel an attraction to that sin, even though, for the most part, he was able to be careful and avoid it. His prescribed atonement, then, is the root of his transgression, the original attraction he had for that forbidden action. Sounds like what they talk about, the laws of attraction. You know what I'm talking about? The book called The Secret, and they have a movie called The Secret, and it's called about the laws of attraction. Anyway. Okay, so thus, the chatas too comes to atone for the improper hidden, the improper thought that was hidden in the recesses of one's heart and must be offered like the ola in the hidden north. Perhaps this is enough to read, but it's really good stuff. You can read it on your own. And let's get back into the Yakar. Where we left off was 2 lines. That's it, 2 lines down in the middle paragraph. And he says that we just got done finished saying that the Ola atones for the thoughts of the heart. And we find in the Yerushalmi, and I'll have to tell you, I couldn't find it anywhere. Did I? Did I not find it? One second. Yeah, I couldn't find the source. But I found a source that quotes the Yerushalmi. So the source says like this. Look at number 6. Rabbi Yerushalmi Muva Ma'aser Rabbi Yochanan. So there's a story about Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara, Shenignav Lo Kiso, his arnak, that somebody, a third party, stole his wallet. Kishalu also, Torah, when his students asked him, Rebbe, we have some questions about Torah. Lo yodo leheshiv lem. He did not know what to answer them. Machmas hatzar shenigram lo, because of the pain. I don't know if you ever had this experience. Maybe you didn't lose a wallet, but perhaps you misplaced your wallet. If you misplace your wallet, now today it's our phones. It's like a wallet, right? It's maybe even more valuable than a wallet. You can't think. You can't concentrate. I don't care how many my wife wants to talk to me. If I'm looking for my wallet, honey, not now, right? Right now, I just have to think backtrack my steps, whatever, say the prayer. May the God of Rebbe Meir answer me 3 times. Anyway, Reish Lakish asked his Rebbe, his Chaver, what, Rebbe? Because you lost your wallet, you lost your Torah, you lost your mind? What's the connection between your wallet and your mind? Because when you can't find your wallet, you lost your mind. Amar lo. So Rabbi Yochanan says back to Reish Lakish, Daita beliba talia, beliba bekisa talia. The truth is that my mind is dependent on my heart, and my heart, the settlement, the tranquility of my heart, is dependent on my wallet or my money. I've seen people do some crazy things over money. But anyway, getting back to the Yakar, he brought that story down. And this is a raya, mikan raya, shechisron kis, yaholel chacham, yabed lev matana. Now that's in Koheles, that's Ecclesiastes, Koheles 7:7. You'll find this in number 8 on the source sheet. For oppression makes the wise foolish. Ki oshek yaholel chacham. Okay? There's a very interesting Rashi on this. What does it mean? Let me read the rest of it. V'ya'abed et leiv matana. It destroys or causes total loss of understanding, which is a gift. So this oshek can make the wise people foolish. So Rashi says the understanding, which is a gift, that's the heart of wisdom, which is a gift to man. I want you to look in Psalms. That's Proverbs. Psalms? No. Mishlei. Mishlei 2, verse 6. For the Lord gives wisdom. The whole verse. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and discernment. It's a gift from God to have wisdom. Okay, let's go back into the Yakar. He says, Asher noson lo elukim lakshov becharoshet eitz chaim. What is the gift of wisdom for? God gave us this wisdom so we can learn his Torah, so we can understand his world. Okay? God gave it for us to consider and think and plow and make the produce come from the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Chaim is the tree of life, which is the Torah itself. V'hisio libo lakshov l'haher bavera. Now, if you don't do that, if you don't think about God, what are you thinking about? You're going to be misdirected. Your heart is misdirected to think about what? To think about sin. Now, if the Kohen is not going to do the Korban properly, because he's not zaruz, he's not zeruz, he's not meticulous, he's falling asleep. Tzarich la'asos acher. Another one has to be brought in its place. Varishon batel va'avad. It's total loss. The first one didn't accomplish anything. And this is the explanation of the Chizkuni. Va'ayidei chisron kizeh. That, now listen to this, like adding insult to injury. Imagine the Kohen who messed up because he wasn't really zaruz. And now he has to bring another one. That chisron kis will cause him to lose his mind. And what makes you think he's going to be even more attentive the second time? In fact, as a rabbi, people come to me a lot often, I shouldn't say that often, Baruch Hashem, and they tell me, I said a bracha, I said Kriya Shema, but I just said the words, I didn't have any intent. Do I have to say it again? Now the truth is, there is a halacha, it depends where, in the first 3 brachos, maybe in just the first bracha, different types of intent. You would have to go back and make the whole Shemona Esrei all over again. But guess what? You know what I tell them? You didn't have the first time, you ain't going to have the second time. That's going to be like all these blessings in vain. What are you going to gain? Okay, we'll leave that for another time. But basically, this is what he's explaining. That if the Kohen messes up, he's already going to have now more anguish over the fact that he's losing money because he had to pay for the second korban. In fact, he's going to even think about other things. So the second korban, well, the first one was for hirhur of the other guy. Now the second one is not going to help even the Kohen himself. Shreihu mitzvah hababa there. In fact, it's all coming to lead to more sin. Ve'echichaper ala hirhur. How is it supposed to atone for the hirhur? V'area korban moisif lo hirhur avera, because the second korban is adding even more thoughts of an avera ayidei chisron kis. That's the question. Lafikach hakohen tzarich zeruz biyoter b'korban ola dafka. That's why the Torah goes out of its way to explain the word tzav means to have even more intent and awakeness, and all the words we used before, passion and quickness, whatever zeruz means, should have it to start with, so you don't have this happen to you. The Yakar continues, Davar acher, alternatively, lefi shekol parsha zu tzivoy el kohanim leimor ledoros. We said in Rashi, we saw in Rashi that this was miyad uledoros, that you should urge on the present generation, and they should also urge on future generations. Lelamdam zot, in other words, that the Kohanim should teach their children the Toiras Ha'ola, the laws, or what's necessarily behind this burnt offering, and the Torah's Chatis, the laws of the sin offering. But not only that, V'chein kol Torah's Karbanos, the laws about all the Karbanos. V'alimud mistama hu bechinam. Now, the word chinam here means free. God taught for free. The Kohanim must teach for free. The limud obviously is not for payment. Like it says in Chazal in Gemara Nedarim 37a, which you'll find on number 9. I think it's important. It's not that long. We'll read it. That the Gemara teaches us that even in a place where one does take payment for teaching, so teachers, you should not take payment. However, we'll see. Everything has a side view. You shouldn't take payment for teaching, but wait one second. When you teach the Bible, means scripture, you're allowed to take payment. So we'll call that Torah Shebechtav. For teaching Midrash, we'll call that Torah Shebapeh. The oral Torah, it's not permitted to take payment. But the Gemara asks, what's the difference? In what way is the Midrash, the oral Torah, different than the written Torah, that you're not allowed to take payment for the oral Torah? It's based on what's written. It actually says in Deuteronomy 4 verse 14 that the Lord commanded me, that would be Moshe, that time to teach you. Moses did not charge. God did not charge. We should not charge. Just like the Torah was given to us for free, therefore, as the verse continues, behold, I have taught you the statutes and laws as the Lord my God commanded. This is like the chapter 4, verse 5. So you should do so in the midst of the land where you possess. So you have an obligation to teach the Torah for free. So God said, just as I teach you for free without payment, so too you shall teach for free. And really the question the Gemara is asking is, so I don't get it. What's the difference? What is the difference between the oral Torah and the written Torah, that you can charge for the written but not for the oral when you teach it over? So Rav said that the Bible, the written text, is typically taught to children, like we're adults, but we're learning it. And one who teaches the text is basically, when he receives payment, it's for babysitting. Okay, it's babysitting money. So you know how much babysitters get paid. Rabbi Yochanan actually adds, and he says that the payment is for teaching the punctuation and the cantillation notes, so the trump and how to pronounce the words correctly. The truth is what you prepare. So we also pay. We pay our teachers. So the question is why? We're actually paying them not to work, right? The people in Kollel are actually being paid not to work. They're not being paid for learning Torah. They're not being paid to learn Torah. But every city, if in Sanhedrin it says a city has 10 batlanim, 10 people who are sitting and ready to be involved in a kvora, in a minyan to say Kaddish, whatever you need a minyan for, you have a base thing, you need a minyan, whatever it is, you'll have a minyan, so you're basically paying them not to work. Obviously, you're not being paid for the learning of your Torah. God gave it to you free, and you should give it away for free. But going back into the Yakar, where we said, "Valimun mistamahu bechinam, kamru chazal nedarim, ma'ani bechinam," just like God taught you the Torah, gave you the Torah for free. Afatem bechinam. So too, you Jews, when you teach the Torah, especially the Kohanim, because the Kohanim, their job is to teach the Torah. You have to give it away for free. Not only that, he says, "Va'od shakohanim mistama ena mashirim." Now, every Kohen I know, I shouldn't say everyone, but most of the Kohanim that I know are quite wealthy. And I think it's because God says in His Torah that I will bless those who bless you. Avrecha, right? I will bless those who bless you. And the Kohanim are blessing the Jews every single day. And Baruch Hashem, I believe that's why the ones I know are wealthy. But the reason it says here they're not is because they don't have a chelik in the land. When we were an agricultural community, right? So they were not allowed to farm and make money like everyone else. Rather, what happened? We gave them our truma and our meiser, and they were able to participate on the holidays, all of them, in the temple, and twice a year for a week, serve in the temple under the Torah. The reason they're not rich is because they don't have a portion in the land. And so how did they eat? Their meals were given to them on a daily basis. They actually lived being fed by the hand of God. Isn't that an amazing thing? And that's what actually the Rambam brings down in Hilchos Yovel and Shvit, that anybody who came into the world can elevate themselves, not literally, physically become part of the tribe of Levi, but in a certain sense, act like Levi, dedicate yourself to the service of Hashem, and Hashem will provide. Okay? So that's what's happening here. And because they're not going to become rich, because they're not farmers or owners of land, so then we have even more concern for them since they're poor. Aren't they supposed to be the teachers? How can they be teachers if they're so poor? That's why the Torah is coming and giving them this extra tzav. You guys have to be fervorous, passionate. Tzav is Aaron Vespanav Lemor, meaning Ladoros, to teach your children. Ulamdam Zot Torah Sola. Make sure to teach them these laws. Kikol Zois Torah, Zos Toras. Remember, it says several times, these are the laws of, in this Parsha, Hamori B'Parshas, B'Kol Parsha, in our Parsha, Kikol Torah's Kohanim, it's all dealing with the laws of the Kohanim, they have to teach. And it says here, just as an example, in Malachi, the last prophet, chapter 2, verse 7. Am I right? Yeah, it's number 10 on the source sheet. For a priest's lips shall guard knowledge. Kisifte Kohen Yishmru Das. Okay? And teaching should be sought from his mouth. V'Torah's Yivakshu Mipiu. So where do you go? The Torah says, go to Yerushalayim and speak to the Kohanim and the Levim and the judges. But the Kohanim are a main part of the Sanhedrin, a main part of the teaching apparatus. And for he is a messenger of the Lord of hosts. Rashi says it's incumbent upon them to guard the knowledge. That's what the Kohen has to do. He has to guard his knowledge. How do you guard your knowledge? You have to do review. First, you have to show up in shir. You can't fall asleep and snore in the shir, but you have to do the review. Also, because the teaching should be sought from his mouth. We've already explained that. It doesn't say the verse here, but they shall teach your ordinance to Yaakov and your Torah to Israel, and they shall place incense before you. This is obviously talking about the Kohanim. They're the teachers. They're supposed to be the teachers Okay? All right. Then the Yakar continues. Actually, he brings another verse similar to that in Haggai. But before we get there, Al kain bo lezar zem lechazek livam b'toras Hashem lelamdo ledorot. Therefore, the Torah is coming and saying, Tzav, urge them on and strengthen them, strengthen their hearts in the Torah of God, so they should teach it for generations. Shelo yikara lehem kader shekara leRabbi Yochanan. And what happened to Rabbi Yochanan shouldn't happen to them. When Sheva'on Minei Orta, see the word Orta, the light, which is really the Torah, V'lo Yoda. Remember the students asked Rabbi Yochanan questions in Torah, and he didn't know because he had lost his wallet, or his wallet got stolen, whichever nusak you want. Ela Ke'ein Shnemar, but rather like it says in Haggai chapter 2, verse 11. When people come to ask Hashem, so the Lord of hosts says, now go and ask the priest. Now ask the priest. Komar Hashem tzivakot, sha'al na es kohanim Torah lemor. You have an obligation to go and speak to the priests. And more than that, he ends off by saying, Kedishmuel, it says in Gemara Pesachim, lo eshtabash kahanei, that the kohanim will not make a mistake. Similar, like when you have an obligation to go to a beis din. Listen, today we're a little bit different. We hope the beis din is not making a mistake. But the higher the beis din, let's say the Sanhedrin, there's almost not a guarantee, because even in the laws of the Sanhedrin, if they make a mistake, they could make a mistake. But we go after the rov. The mistake is if it's with a voda zara, then there's a special korban, if they cause you to sin. But if they make a mistake, it may not be a mistake. The point is that you have to follow them. It says there's a warning in the Torah. No matter what they say, even if they say right is left and left is right, you have to follow them. Okay? And you will not be blamed. So you're relying on them not to make a mistake. I think this is a similar idea with the Kohen. I think that's like a similar concept. Anyway, so next week we will still be meeting. I think listen, we have to have the fire of Torah. We have to have the fire of Torah in our hearts. I think it's the only way we're going to get rid of that forest, to build that city, right? The way it was explained in the Mashal. So too, and I'll use these words, and this is a Jewish concept. We wash our hands every single morning. There's really 4 reasons why. One of those reasons we're called a Bria Chadasha. We're given a new chance every morning to really, He trusted us enough to give our souls back. He has trust in us. Rabbi Amuratecha. He really trusts us a lot. And we should take advantage. I really believe we have an opportunity to take advantage of God's love for us. And I'm going to use this term. I know it sounds Christian, but it's actually Jewish. Bria Chadasha. You are born again. You are given a brand new chance. You're a different person. And Bezrat Hashem, through our own tshuva, and what the Jewish people are going through now, through this national, circumstances, I think that we're all being transformed into Bria Chadasha. I'll say born again. We're not the same people we were on October 6th as we are now. There's so much, we already talked about this in the past, what the Jewish people were like on October 6th with the opposite of unity, disunity. There's so much unity, and we just have to figure out how we can continue and grow upon it and grow it so that it blossoms into the sprout that we're all looking forward to coming, which is Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mei Remeinu, and the rebuilding of the temple soon in our days. And we'll see you next week in Shabbat Shalom.
Shama shir shir chadai